Hello, I'm here with Giles Colborne, and we are at UX Poland 2016. Hello, Giles.
Hi, Tim.
Nice to meet you. Oh, it's getting windy. We are talking about responsibility in design at this edition of UX Poland. Giles, what are your thoughts on responsibility? How you believe a designer can be responsible? How a company can be responsible with their UX activity?
So I think designers have a huge role to play in that, and that's partly because the role of and the way we do design has changed. The British author Terry Pratchett said, the root of all evil is treating people as objects. And the crazy thing is, I think during the entire industrial era, that's how people were treated. We called people consumers, and that's all they were there for, to buy stuff and consume stuff.
Or human resources.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we talked about resource rather than people. Like we don't have a resource planning meeting at my company. We have a people planning meeting because that's what's getting planned. So I think there's a huge role to play as we move out of the industrial era into the digital era. The big change has been you can't treat people as objects anymore. You have this sort of one-on-one relationship with them, and so you have to start designing for individuals. You have to start communicating with individuals. And that humanization of the relationship between organizations and individuals is really important. And design is absolutely the heart of that. User-centered design is about bringing people into the design process. I think it's a really subversive process that, when you start to bring videos of people into company meetings, when you start to encourage managers to come out with you and watch people using their products in their homes, it changes the way that the company treats them. It humanizes the company or the organization in particular, and we're part of that. So it's essential. We're facilitating it. We're at the heart of a really important change in the way that society works.
Okay. And we are focusing on the good examples here during the conference, and we're trying to highlight things that are actually done the right way. But I'm always curious also about the other side. Like, can you think about something that is well designed, so it serves its purpose, and the user goes through the journey easily and without second thoughts, but actually the impact is not perfect. It doesn't point us in the right direction.
So something that ultimately has a negative impact on the user. I think what happens sometimes is systems get set up that are all about short-term gain. And again, when you have a kind of a short-term focus, things start to go wrong. So I think about the way, say, that a lot of airline tickets are sold. And America is far worse for this than Europe. If you go and travel on an airplane in America, tickets are essentially sold and bought by people. They focus in on the price of the airline ticket. And that's how they choose. This one is $1 cheaper. I'm going to go with that one. And what happens then is there's a race to the bottom. The quality of traveling becomes worse and worse and worse. And so if you travel in America, everybody's trying to save a few dollars on their ticket. So they get charged if they put the luggage in the luggage hold. So they bring the luggage onto the airplane with them. And it's horrible boarding, because everybody's trying to jam their piece of luggage in. I sat next to a woman a couple of years back. We were flying cross-country, and to save a few dollars, she had an enormous rucksack on her lap for 4 hours. She couldn't move, but she'd saved herself a few dollars. And that was a design problem and a system problem. Because the design of the buying process emphasizes ticket price, because short-term, that's going to mean that the airline company sells more tickets, fills more airplanes. This sort of horrible spiral is created.
All right, it's something that I think we often observe in those industries that people rarely come back, or there is a large dose of anonymity that when money comes into play more, the quality suffers a lot.
Yeah.
And when we recently had Uber enter Poland, and with the very presence of transportation services without anonymity, with this reviewing process, I mean, this is a night and day difference. I haven't seen a driver from an application-controlled platform to behave in a manner that is perfectly normal and common for those anonymous taxi drivers that you just call off from a street. So it's.
I think there's something positive and something reassuring about, you can see a rating for a taxi driver, you can see a rating for taxi, but I agree that that long term it's incredibly stressful for people, for individuals, always to be rated, always to be examined, to be under the microscope all the time, and that's hard work for people. And so in a way, that kind of dehumanizes it, and it sets the relationship up almost in antagonism.
That's an interesting perspective.
There's a power relationship there, which is a little bit scary. I'd rather. It's interesting the way you put it as well. That you're talking about the normal behaviour of a taxi driver, and really that's part of what you want. You want to be treated well because you don't want the worst things to happen, but also you want to have a human relationship. And I don't think something like the rating system on Uber quite gets there. It solves one problem, but it creates another.
I see. It's really interesting that you brought this to the picture. Probably we have far too short of a perspective on the thing for us for this to be noticeable impact. But I'm really happy that there are people with a longer perspective on the things. Tell me, speaking of longer perspectives, what do you think is gonna gain significance in our close future? What do you think is gonna affect us the most when we're talking trends, when we're talking new gadgets that are melting into the ecosystems that we operate on?
I think in my experience, every 7 or 8 years, you get a big shift in the industry. So 7 or 8 years ago, that would have been the iPhone, and the way that just changed people's perception of what it was to carry a small computer around with you all the time. And that's had an enormous impact. And 7 or 8 years before that, it was the dot-com crash, which meant that companies suddenly realized the internet was not just going to give them money, they had to make stuff that worked for people. And 7 or 8 years before that, it was simply the emergence of the internet. So we're about due for a big change now. And I think you can start to see it. I'm not sure if there'll be an event where you can put your finger on it, like the launch of an iPhone or the crash of a stock market. But I think we're at a point where actually internet connectivity, digital connectivity is being baked into an awful lot of the products around us. And almost without realizing it, we're creating digitally enabled environments. And so the shift is going to be away from the computer that you carry with you to the environment that you're in being the computing. And that's going to have a profound impact on our relationship with technology. It's going to have an important impact on design practice. We're going to have to design far more complicated, subtle interactions. And we're going to lose things like screens and keyboards and touchscreens as ways of interacting with them. And so we're going to have to make the environments much smarter about sensing who's here, what are they trying to do, how can I help them? The environments are going to have some intelligence behind them. And I think one of the big trends that I'm seeing at the moment is people investing in artificial intelligence and people starting to try to use artificial intelligence so that they can shortcut interactions. They can make interactions faster, more efficient, less taxing on the user. Some big changes coming.
Definitely. So you point to an interesting thing, because with this digitally aware or digitally functional things around us, I think the matter that will start differentiate environments as far as design process and needs and competence level will be the saturation of technology.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that that the world is
I hope. One of the fascinating things for me is gathering those different stories from around the world and seeing the smart ways which people are applying the technology.
okay? That's actually pretty amazing perspective, and one of the great advantages of being here is hearing all those perspectives from people from different locations, from people traveling and working in different environments. It's really something. And as far as I know, you're also closely involved with UX Awards.
Well, this year, or 2015, I was one of the judges for the UX Awards, so I kind of got to see it from the inside.
So tell me, what makes design remarkable?
For me, the things that, if I think about every project that I've worked on, and every project that I've heard about, where something really remarkable has happened, actually, the foundation for that has been communication and trust within the team, and communication and trust between the team and the stakeholders. And if I were going to do one thing to set up a team and set up a project for success, it would be to spend time building that trust, and to spend effort in making sure the communication was as rapid and as complete as possible. It's one of the things that I certainly try to do with my company, and certainly try to do with the projects that I'm involved with, is to find ways for the stakeholders to get as involved in the design process as possible. Even if that, picking up pens, showing us what they mean, drawing out what they think the solutions could be, because in that way you start to have a discussion. And through the discussion you always find something new, you always make it better. And I think that is the raw material on which success is built.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Tim.
you for being here and contributing, and thank you for watching, and stay tuned.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.